for making time to be with us. We appreciate your time, and for everyone else who has also made time to be here with us. And so I'm sorry, I had a little message popped up. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start. So my name is Ana Valenzuela. I am the Family and Community Support Coordinator with Community Connections. And so Community Connections is a nonprofit agency who provides free extracurricular activities for children with disabilities and support for the entire family. So we provide support by offering a variety of services like respite care. We have a family one-on-one mentoring program that we've just launched. We also do sibling support services for the family. The best way to stay connected is through our website, www.communityconnectionsar.org, where you can find all of the upcoming activities and events, registration links. And so I'm going to go ahead and hand it over now to Deanne Hunt. And so she's going to go over some things today.
And I'd like to say hello and welcome to everybody as well. I'm Deanne Hunt, president of Arkansas Down Syndrome Association. And we are a nonprofit here in Little Rock and have been around since 2004. We provide social activities, educational activities such as this. We love partnering with Community Connections. You can find our activities and upcoming events on our ardownsyndrome.org, our website. It's I'll put it here in the chat. Anyway, so we're excited to learn about this today, and welcome. You want to go ahead and introduce her, Anna?
Yes, ma'am. Phylis Dills is a public affairs specialist for the Dallas region of the Social Security Administration, serving the state of Arkansas. Phylis worked throughout the state to educate the public about Social Security programs. Phylis began her career in 2005 as a claim representative, specializing in the disability and supplemental security income programs, and transitioned to her current position in 2010. Go ahead, Phylis.
Okay, well, I do have a presentation to share with you all today. It's telling me that it's disabled. So is there a way to be able to share my screen?
Yes, let me work on that here.
Okay, thank you.
See if that will help.
Okay, yes, it's gonna let me now.
Okay.
All right, well, while I get this pulled up, bear with me just a moment. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here with you all today to give you some information about our Supplemental Security Income Program. It is an honor to be invited, and I appreciate you wanting to include us. And so today we're going to be focusing just on our Supplemental Security Income Program, which we commonly refer to as SSI. But, you know, I can't answer questions for any range of Social Security benefits. So feel free, if I'm not addressing something that you would like information about or questions about, feel free to ask. So with our Supplemental Security Income Program, this is one program of many that Social Security administers. And it is a program that's outside of what we consider Social Security benefits. Where you pay those Social Security taxes and work toward insuring yourself for benefits in that program. SSI is separate from that, but it still pays monthly benefits, and it pays benefits to those who are either blind, disabled, or 65 and older, and whose income and resources fall below specific financial limits. So because of this, you can have people such as children who have not worked, paid into the Social Security system, but they can qualify for these SSI benefits if they meet this criteria, this technical criteria. So just a little bit information before we really dig in. SSI's eligibility, we're going to look at whether it's based on financial need, okay? So we're going to look at their finances, and if they are filing because they're blind or disabled, then we're also going to look at a medical criteria in addition to that. But 65 and older, there is no medical criteria. They have to meet by age and financial need. The amount someone receives from SSI can vary, but it's not going to go above the federal benefit rate. So those benefits are capped. And depending on the situation, other income they might have or living arrangements, it can decrease from there up into the point where someone would be ineligible. So also important to know that SSI benefits are not payable to family members. So if you have an individual who qualifies, even though they may have a dependent in the home, that dependent doesn't qualify. Each person qualifies on their own by meeting the criteria. And then with the SSI program, what we hear oftentimes is extremely valuable is the Medicaid coverage. So anytime someone qualifies for SSI, they will qualify for Medicaid coverage. So any month a person, even if they're just due $1 in SSI benefits, that will give them Medicaid coverage for that month. So just a little information, we talked about the federal benefit rate or how those benefits are capped. For this year, the most an individual can receive on SSI is $794 a month. Now, if we have an SSI couple, and what we consider an SSI couple are two adults who have married or are presenting themselves to the community as a married couple, and they both meet SSI criteria based on income resources, blind, disabled, or 65 and over, then they're considered a couple for SSI, and the couple's rate for this year is $1,191 a month. So when we're screening someone for SSI, we initially look at their income and resources to see if they qualify. So as far as the eligibility factor of income, we count any income that the individual themselves receives or a child that child receives. Now, if they're living with a spouse or they're living with parents, then that spouse or the parent's income is counted as well when we look to see if they qualify. Also, living arrangements can affect SSI benefits. So with the SSI program, you do have to, if you're incarcerated, if you are put in an institution or hospitalized, that can affect your SSI rate if you're there for 30 days or more. So that is one part of it. Another part is if you are an adult and you're living in a household, and it's not just you and a spouse, but you're living with other adults and you're not contributing your share of the household expenses, then your SSI would be lower than the full benefit rate due to you not contributing your share. Now, most people who are adults who qualify for SSI, they're not receiving any income when they file, and they often are not contributing to the household expenses because they have no income to do that. So they typically start out at a lower rate, and then once they start contributing their share to the household expenses, and we verify that with other adult in the home, then we can increase their benefit rate based upon how much of their share that they are contributing. So when we look at income, there are certain income exclusions that apply. So we have a general income exclusion of $20 a month that applies to most income received. When we look at income is in one of two categories. It's either an earned income or an unearned income. So earned income, of course, is your wages, self-employment, that you're working and earning that income. Unearned income would be things like unemployment, T benefits, child support, things like that. Those are considered an unearned income. And unearned income has a dramatic effect on your SSI benefit. So it's going to lower it dollar for dollar. So this $20 general income exclusion, we will always apply it to any unearned income that is countable for that person. So we take that off of the unearned income. If there is no unearned income in the home, then we will apply it to earned income. So on top of that potential reduction there from the general income exclusion, there's also an earned income exclusion that applies as well. So we exclude of earned income the first $65, and then from the remaining amount, we reduce it by half. And so only that's remaining is counted or will reduce the benefit amount. So let's say you have an individual who is working, that's the only income that they have coming in. So that individual's earnings, let's just say, is $585 a month. So we would take the $20 income exclusion because there's not any unearned income in this example. We take that off, it would reduce it to $565. We would take off the $65 earned income exclusion and then take off another $250 because we're dividing that 500 in half. And so $250 would be what would reduce their SSI benefit. So there is a lot of incentive in the SSI program for an individual to work and continue to be able to receive their benefits. As far as other things that we exclude, we do not count the value of food stamps. So if someone's receiving SNAP, it's not going to affect their SSI benefits. Utilities assistance does not reduce benefits. HUD, if you're receiving housing, that's not going to reduce SSI benefits. If someone is sheltered in a private nonprofit organization, then that's not going to reduce SSI. So those are just some of the exclusions that we have. Now I do have for you, this is a deeming eligibility chart for children. So this kind of gives you right off a snapshot of who can qualify. So the only drawback about this chart is that it can only be used if you only have earned income or you only have unearned income in the home. So you can see here, the first column is the number of ineligible children in the household. So if you have a child that is applying and then you have another child in the home that's not receiving SSI benefits or not applying for them, then that child is considered an ineligible child, okay? Next to that, you have the column that's all income is earned. And then below that, a one parent and two parent household. So you can go down from there, look at your number of ineligible children and see if your gross wages for your household are below these amounts, then there is potential SSI eligibility there for that child as far as just the income side of it. Now, if you go over to the next column on the right, that's the unearned income. So if you're only receiving unearned income in the home, maybe it's Social Security benefits, you can look at that and the number of ineligible children to determine those threshold amounts that a person can receive and still qualify as far as a child. Now let's talk about the resource side of it. So we talked before, it's needs-based, it depends on income and resources. So resources are also looked at, and there's resource limits. For an adult, if it's just an individual, they have a resource limit of $2,000. If they are a member of a couple, then they have a resource limit of $3,000. For children, if a child is living with one parent, then the resource limit for the household is going to be $4,000. If they're living with two parents, then the resource limit for the household is $5,000. And if the child is living with someone other than their parent, so there's no parent in the household, they're not adopted, then the child themselves has a $2,000 resource limit. Now, resources that we count here are just some of the common ones: bank accounts, certificates of deposits, IRAs, any car past the first exclusion car, we count the value of that. And we also take into consideration if someone has a loan on that vehicle, we only look at the equity value that's present. Stocks or bonds, any kind of retirement fund that can be cashed out, even though it may be penalized or have, taxes taken out, that's still counted as a resource. Liquid assets, we're not going to ask you to sell off all of your property or to count the value of your furniture and things like that. This is simply things like, do you have cash stored in your house somewhere, under your mattress, in the refrigerator, some of the things that people do instead of putting it in the bank. Do you have a coin collection that is just a phenomenal value to it? It's some things that, in this program, to meet those resource requirements, you do have to, look at possibly selling these things and living on that in order to get to where you're at, or you're not going to qualify. So those are the kind of things that we look at, not really these things in your home that are there, but these valuable things that you might have. Property other than where you live. So if someone has property in their name and they're not living on that property, then it is counted as a resource. Now, there are certain exclusions and things we could look at. So I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, well, you have property in your name you don't live on, you shouldn't apply, because there are particular exclusions. Are you trying to sell this property? We may be able to go ahead and start the process then, allow you to file for benefits. If your benefits are approved, then once the property is sold, they have to repay the benefits back. But once you've gotten down below the resource limit, then we can have you reapply. Also, if it's family property maybe, and there's multiple names on it, depending on how the deed is written, we may be able to exclude it. So there's certain things we can look at. So don't think that just because you may have some property doesn't mean that you wouldn't qualify. There are exclusions there. Some of the common resource exclusions: the home that where you live, your first car. So we have a first car exclusion, and we apply that to the car that's the most valuable. So the one that has the most equity in it, we're going to apply that exclusion to. Burial plots are excluded for a resource value, and we also have an exclusion for resources set aside for burial. So outside of burial plots, things like life insurance policies that have a cash surrender value. Those things can, part of those can be excluded, so it wouldn't count towards your resource limit. Now, with the SSI program, an individual does receive the Medicaid coverage. We talked a little bit about that earlier. So what Social Security does in this process is we screen individual for SSI, we send it for a medical decision. If they're approved, then we will provide information to the state. We do it via data exchange that lets them know this individual is qualifying, therefore they know to give them the Medicaid coverage. So once someone is approved and the benefits are started, then we will notify the Medicaid office and they will provide the individual with their Medicaid card and information about the Medicaid program. So we talked mainly about the technical eligibility side of it, the income and the resources. Once we screen someone for that to see if they qualify, then we send it for a medical decision if they do. So Social Security has its own definition of disability. So if someone's filing for disability or blindness, then we send it for a medical decision. And for an adult, we have a definition that is a medical condition or combination of impairments that prevents someone from doing substantial work for at least 12 months or is expected to result in death. And that decision also considers age, education, and work experience. So one thing to point out, we do have, in our definition, it says you can't do substantial work for at least 12 months. Well, it doesn't mean a person has to wait 12 months to apply. It just means the prognosis, with considering their condition, they wouldn't be expected to be able to return to work. Also, the last sentence, the determination also considers age, education, and work experience. So because of that, you could have two individuals with very similar conditions, but end up with different results because of different ages, education levels, and work experience. So it's important to kind of keep that in mind. Understanding that definition kind of helps understand how that program, how the medical decisions are made. Now, with SSI, we do pay benefits to children. So we also have the child definition. And because they're children, we don't expect them to work. And so they look at it a little bit differently. So a child must have a physical or mental condition or combination of impairments that results in marked and severe functional limitations. And that condition is expected to last for at least 1 year or result in death. So for children, they looked at marked and severe functional limitations. So they're going to take that child, their information, their medical, considering them medically, and they're going to say, what is their ability to function on a day-to-day basis compared to another child with the same condition, or I'm sorry, without condition. So they're going to compare that child to a child without condition of the same age. And is there marked and severe functional limitations when they look at that? So I have an example. Prior to doing public affairs work for Social Security, I did take disability applications, and I actually specialized in the SSI program. And I had an appointment with a mom who was filing for her daughter who had spinal bifida. And I noticed in preparing for the application, the mother had filed when the child was born, and the child was denied. So she was refiling now. The child is 18 months, and the mother really didn't understand why the child was denied, because spinal bifida is not a condition that goes away. And so explaining this definition of disability was helpful in getting her to understand that. What happened, the end result was the child's now 18 months, is not crawling or walking, and now they found marked and severe functional limitation, and the child was approved. So that kind of, I think, really encompasses that definition and kind of shows you how you may have a child that has a serious condition, but because it's not, inhibiting them with marked and severe functional limitation, at the time that they apply, they may not be approved. They have to get to the point where it is causing that marked and severe functional limitation. Now, once we send an application to the Disability Termination Service, the DDS, they process it and make a decision. But to apply for benefits, to start off with, you're going to want to contact us by phone. Many of our applications are online, but the SSI application, especially for children, is not available to complete there fully. And so you can complete a medical report online, but you still have to complete the SSI application. So you're going to want to contact us by phone. This is our national 800 number, or you can contact your local Social Security office and complete an application. Now, previously we did take applications in person, but because of COVID-19, we are currently closed to in-person services at the time of this presentation. So we're not doing SSI applications. Now we are available in person for very specific dire need critical items by appointment. So if you feel that you have a critical dire need situation, you would want to contact your local Social Security office to inquire about those specific appointments. But for a general SSI application, those are going to be done by phone by appointment, and they will give you a day and time in which Social Security will contact you to complete that application. Now, once we do the application with you by phone, we'll screen it to see if you qualify based on income and resources. If so, we then send it to the Disability Termination Service for that medical decision. Now, the DDS will often send some additional forms to be completed just to get some additional information. Typically, it's asking about daily living activities as far as how that person is able to function day to day and what assistance they might need. And sometimes we have the DDS will schedule a consultative exam. And so in situations where maybe the medical records that were provided didn't address a certain area or condition that the person is filing for, then they may set up a consultative exam for that person to be evaluated. So if they do that, they'll send a letter. It'll have the day and time of the examination. And you will need to respond to that to let them know whether or not you'll be able to attend. And also, if you respond and say you can attend and then something comes up and you're not able to make the appointment, you will need to contact the DDS to let them know so they can reschedule it. Because if you just don't show up, then they could actually deny the application for that. And so we don't want that to happen. Be sure and contact them so that it can be rescheduled. But in a consultative exam, it is just an examination where they evaluate the individual. They do not do any treatments or treatment plans or anything like that. And so just be prepared for that. Also, with the consultative exam, if you do have to attend one, they will try to get you with the closest doctor that completes those exams for us as possible. But sometimes it is a little bit of a drive for individuals, depending on, you know, what kind of condition that person has, what they're filing for. But there is a process for the person to be reimbursed for travel expenses. Now, from the point in which a claim is submitted until a medical decision is made, it usually takes about 3 to 4 months. Now, what we have noticed with COVID-19 is that there has been somewhat of a delay, especially if there is a consultative exam that is needed. Those have been delayed a little bit in getting those scheduled. So we're seeing those being scheduled out further than what they were previously. 3 to 4 months could be more like 4 to 5 months due to COVID at this point. We also have a compassionate allowances program and a wounded warriors program, but for individuals who have certain conditions that are listed on our compassionate allowances. If they have that condition, then it can speed up the process of the filing, how long it takes to file. Typically what happens is that case is flagged right away that this person is alleging a compassionate allowance condition, and that case is expedited for a medical decision. Now, once a person is approved for benefits, then typically what happens at that point, it goes back to the Social Security office. We recontact that individual parent who's filing for the child. We review all their income and resources, verify that information. So if they're working, we ask for pay stubs or a printout from the employer that verifies their gross wages. We also, verify bank account balances and things like that. So we're verifying all the income and resources to make sure that they do qualify before we process payment. And so also with this program, since it is based on need, there are reporting responsibilities for the individual or the parent to follow. And when you apply, you will get a copy of those reporting responsibilities. And if the person is approved, then they'll receive another copy of the reporting responsibilities. But basically your reporting responsibilities is to make sure you always have good contact information with us. Make sure your bank information is up to date if we're paying you direct deposit. And then, of course, any changes in the income, resources, or living arrangements that we go over with you when we do the application, those must be reported to us. SSI is a program where we pay you what you're due for that month. And so it's important to be sure and let us know if you expect changes in the future, or right away if you've had a very recent change in any of your income, resources, or living arrangements.
Phyllis, I do have a question. Do you mind if we go over it now?
No, actually, I just went to my question slide, so I'll be glad to go ahead and answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay, so it's, what is the truth to falsity ratio to the widely held belief that virtual all initial SSI applications are denied, and that it takes at least a second application to be truly considered?
Okay, so we do see a large number of applicants, and some of them are denied. Now, there are a variety of reasons for denial. We have people who file applications for things that do not fit our definition of disability. We have people who want to file from everything from a broken toe to terminal cancer. And so when you look at our medical definition, it has to be something that's expected to last for at least 12 months or result in death. So when you look at the variety of things that is keeping an individual from working, how long will that last? Would it last 12 months? And so that does often, because of the variety of applications we receive, it does often result in a denial. Now, with this process, we do have individuals who will file and they're denied, and they appeal that and appeal it up to a hearing. And in the process of getting to a hearing, you're looking at 1.5 to 2 years at least, typically, for a person to get to the point where they go before a judge. And a lot of times we see individuals who have health conditions who, when they first applied, didn't necessarily meet the criteria, but by the time they get to the hearing, their condition is deteriorated to the point where, yes, now they qualify. So I think you kind of, I know I hear that often, but I think you kind of have to step back and look at the program as a whole. I've seen many people who are approved the very first time. So just when I did those applications and processed those. So part of it too is the quality of the information that's provided. When an individual files, we do not require them to provide medical records to us. We send those medical requests to their doctor's offices that they have given us in the application. If that doctor's office does not respond, then we will follow up with them a couple of times to try to get that information. But there comes a point in time where we cannot delay a decision any further just because we haven't received those records. And so some cases a decision is made on when we don't have the records that would probably have been crucial to that being a different decision. And so, there are just a variety of things that can result in a denial. And so it's really hard to just say across the board that this is the case. It really depends on the circumstances involved and what's going on. So you're going to see a variety of things. But I can tell you from my own personal experience as a claims representative, there are several people who are approved on the first application. So I would not agree with that that myth, I guess you could say, as far as everyone being denied the first time. So great question. I understand the curiosity on that. Are there any other questions I can answer?
I have one, Phyllis. I've heard in the past that you were talking about qualifying, and if you had property in your name and you needed to sell it. I've heard people say that there's like a 2-year time frame before you can actually receive the benefits. How does that, is that something that works in there some way?
Okay, so with that 2-year time frame, it's a little different than just selling a property. If you sold a property for market value, then you would be ineligible until you spent that money down below the resource limit. Okay. If you sell property for under market value because you're trying to get rid of it, we see that happen a lot, where a person is qualifying for SSI benefits, they don't want to lose those SSI benefits, and so they want to just get this property out of their name, and they'll sign it over to someone. So they're basically giving it away, or they'll sell it for much less than market value. Mm-hmm. And in those situations, then yes, what happens is we say, well, it's a transfer of a resource. You gave this away. You could have sold it and lived on those funds, and you didn't. So because of that, they take the market value of the property, divide it by the federal benefit rate. So the $794 for this year. And then that tells us the number of months a person is ineligible up to 2 years. So if the amount that it was worth was more than 2 years worth of SSI, we only go to 2 years of ineligibility.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. What do you do about retirement accounts that it's not really enough to live on, and they go through it in a couple of months, as long as they've gone through their retirement account, then they can apply, but not before?
Yes.
Okay.
What if you have a retirement account and someone, that's hindering them and they're having a hard time paying their expenses, then they would be to qualify for SSI, you would have to, cash that out, pay any penalty or taxes on it, and then live on that to reduce it down below the resource limit. So as soon as they get it below the resource limit, they can apply. And we also caution people even in that scenario, do not give those funds away, because that's a transfer of a resource again, and it can cause future ineligibility. So we're dealing with very vulnerable people who have low income resources. There are plenty of things they probably need to use that money on. But sometimes we do. I remember a case, I had an individual where they had actually won a lawsuit and had these funds come in, and they gave it away to their family members. And so thinking that would get them reestablish their eligibility. And so it ended up being a mess. And we often tell people who call us to report this happened, look, what do you need? We can exclude this much for life insurance, what kind of thing, we exclude one car, what kind of things do you need? And oftentimes it's very basic things like furniture and appliances and, things that are not going to count for them as a resource, things that they need that they can spend that on to get below that limit.
Okay. And so a special needs trust, how does that factor in?
Now, a special needs trust is very tricky. It's going to depend on how it is set up. And we take those on a case by case basis. And because they can be set up a variety of ways. We actually, when we receive one of those now, we have to send that down to our regional office in Dallas, all of the information about it. We get a copy of the trust and they analyze it to see whether or not it's countable. Some of them are excluded based on how they're set up and others are not. And so I don't know the policy on that off the top of my head because it is such a technical thing that they look at. But, it depends on how it's set up and how the monies out of that is paid out. And if it is a trust that would reimburse Medicaid if the person passes away, they consider all of those things.
Okay.
So it really is a case by case basis on a trust.
And the Able accounts that we're setting up now for our loved ones with special needs, is that the same for that, or?
No, Able accounts we can exclude.
Okay.
So that is something that we are able to exclude. It is a great, we were really happy as an agency too to see that the Able accounts come in, because there is such a need for that, especially when you have children who were disabled since childhood and they grow up as an adult, and parents want to make sure that they are always taken care of. But Able accounts are excluded under SSI.
Okay. And then is there a way to get your special needs trust qualified ahead of time?
Yeah, you could, if you contact your local Social Security office, and we do have some technical experts there that can kind of lay out the what we look at as far as trust. And we may have some information on our website to that as well. I would have to look it up and see, but we do have something called SSI Spotlights on our website. If you just search SSI Spotlights, you should find a link to those, and they have a variety of topics. They're available about the SSI program, eligibility, how we look at income exclusions, resource exclusions, there's far more than what we discussed today. And so, having that and looking at that is a great resource as well.
Okay.
Okay, I have another question here. It says, it's from Carrie. It says, if our son does not qualify due to the income cap, can we qualify when he turns 18 or 21, or will he never qualify? How does that work after guardianship?
That is a great question. So if you have a child that doesn't qualify because of parent income, when they turn 18, you can reapply. You will need to wait and contact us in the month that they turn 18. We can't take an application any sooner than that and not consider the parent income. So in the month they turn 18, contact the Social Security office. We can schedule an appointment. Once they turn 18, we only look at that. They're considered an adult at that point. So we only look at your child's income and resources themselves at that point. So oftentimes we do see children who don't qualify for SSI because of parent income, but once they turn 18, they can qualify. Now, on another note, when you're considering a child who has a disability, it's going to be a lifelong disability, they can apply for SSI 18. If their parent, if that child stays unmarried, and because they had a disability before the age of 22, if their parent files for benefits, either retirement, disability, or a parent passes away from work long enough under Social Security, then that child could get survivor's benefits, or they could receive a dependent parent benefit from their parent if they are disabled or retired under Social Security. So in those situations, what we see is often they are due a much higher benefit than they can get from SSI. And after 24 months of eligibility to those benefits, they receive Medicare coverage. So that is something to be sure and keep in mind as your children get older and, even though at 18 they can qualify for SSI, once a parent starts receiving Social Security, or if the parent passes away, then they may be able to receive those additional benefits. So it's definitely something you want to think about and look into. Now, I will tell you another thing about turning 18. If you have a child receiving benefits and they're turning 18, then we will do another medical review with the adult criteria to see if they qualify. It's very common. I mean, everyone and any child who's receiving and turning 18 has to go through that process. And so basically, what they're doing is look to see, does this child qualify based on the adult criteria? And once that medical decision, they'll continue to receive benefits while the decision's being made. If the decision's made and it's approved, then the benefits will just continue. If for some reason they are denied, you do have an appeals process you can go through. If you appeal it within 10 days of the date of the decision that's mailed to you, then you can elect to continue benefit payments while you're going through the appeal process. So you had another question?
Yeah, when you were talking about the survivor benefits, and that after 24 months they're eligible for Medicare benefits, does that mean they're already receiving Medicaid for those 24 months?
Well, that's a good question. And there's a problem here that would probably need to be considered if you're in this situation, because SSI is going to require that child to file for anything that they're eligible for. Okay, so you have the requirement to switch to that benefit. If it's higher than the SSI payment, if it's $20 higher, $20 or more higher, then it's going to stop their SSI payment, which stops their SSI Medicaid. So that Medicaid, in order to obtain it at that point, you would have to file through the DHS office. And we're not trained in that because they are separate from us. So I really don't know how they can qualify at that point for those 24 months while they're waiting. I don't know a lot about what their options are as far as Medicaid.
So potentially they could be without insurance. Okay.
Correct. Now they may be able to go through the marketplace. They may be able to, if the parent's retiring and they're electing coverage, I don't know if there's a way for them to get their child covered because they have a disability. Those are things that you'll want to consider if you're looking toward retiring and thinking about those things to figure out how your child's going to get coverage. But really, you know, as far as the Medicaid part of it, it will stop if the SSI stops. So you would have to look at the other options available through the state if there are any. I'm just not sure about that.
Okay. Vicky is saying that her daughter does draw survivor benefits, and her Medicare started, I guess, when she started receiving those benefits, but she has both Medicare and Medicaid. Vicky, I don't know if you could speak to that, if you didn't have to wait and you were not without coverage, because she goes on to say that she had it during the 24 months, the Medicaid.
Okay, well, if a person, that survivor's benefit is not the SSI rate, then they will continue to get SSI and that Social Security survivor's benefit. And
Oh,
so in that case, they would continue the Medicaid.
okay. But so there is a possibility to receive both at the same time.
Yes, it is possible. It's only if that Social Security is below, you know, that federal benefit rate, then that possibility exists.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Also, Phyllis, is there a way we can get the PowerPoint? That was one of our first questions.
Absolutely. I'll send you.
Perfect.
And I'll also send you a link to those SSI Spotlights. They really are a great resource. And that income chart that I put in here is on there as well. So,
Perfect.
yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions that I can answer, feel free, even if it's not about SSI. Okay.
Phyllis, thank you so much for all that you do, sending out email and communication for anybody on this Zoom that receives the Community Connections newsletter. When I get updates on services from the SSA office, I put it in the community section of our newsletter. But we do appreciate you taking the time to explain the ins and outs.
Well,
Definitely.
I'm honored to be here with you all. I appreciate the work that you do and the help that you provide to the community. And so I'm glad to be here, and anytime you want to have me back, just let me know and I'll be glad to talk with you about any Social Security topic.
Absolutely. All right,
All
so
right.
I guess we're gonna close it
Wrap
out.
it up. Oh, wrap it up.
All right, well, thank you, ladies. We appreciate you. And I appreciate you, Courtney Leach, as well, for initiating these webinars. Phyllis, for being available, and all your speedy responses. For Deanne, thank you, Deanne Hunt, for your collaboration. And thank you to all of those who were able to participate today. I will have a link of the recording, and I'll be sending that out this week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.